Gentlemen, what a pleasure, and what a film.
Thank you.
Thank you, man.
Thank you. When
What
you
a
make it,
background you
yeah,
have.
I'm digging the poster back.
Yeah.
Thank you. I honestly, I love great modern westerns, and this certainly is one. And yet, it's deeper than that because the boot is on the other foot, so to speak. And
Nice.
uh,
We are going to steal that.
I like your style, Tony.
put it on the poster.
Yeah.
Uh, let's start with the direction because filming something like this is got to be a huge task because you're dealing with these vistas, you're dealing with these areas, um, and you got to fit everything in one screen and still pay homage to the surrounding areas, your location. So, did you plan this out? Storyboarding? Are you that kind of a director?
We did a little bit of storyboarding on sort of some of the more complicated sections, and I'm a big shot lister, so I go into the movie with like 50 pages of just nonsense that's my own sort of stream of consciousness. Okay, here's what I want to achieve in each scene with each shot. But a lot of this was, this was very much a location movie. We were inspired by some of the great travel movies like Motorcycle Diaries, and that's aiming high. And we're talking about an important subject, so the bar was high for what we were holding ourselves to, and it was challenging. We were out, in the central Mexico, working, in the desert or in the mountains. It was at times freezing cold and incredibly hot. We were working with every animal from a horse and cows and bulls to turtles and sheep.
Yeah.
So any challenges we could throw at ourselves, I guess we did, and it came out okay.
Jake, your character is, you're on the run basically. You're fugitive, and yet you find yourself in Mexico with this, what Mexicans deal with in coming over here. You're an illegal alien from the other side.
Yeah, absolutely. That was kind of one of the main genesis for the film was, what if it was you? And we really wanted to show the boot on the other boot, and the boot on the other foot. And we wanted to see what would happen if somebody like me was the one in the shadows. What if someone like me was penniless and working for $1 a day? And what if it was you that didn't know the language? What would you think then?
I think your character, who goes for this metamorphosis in stripping away everything that we think is important, your character finally finds himself.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm so glad you said the term stripping away everything, because, on his journey, it's an emotional one. He comes to know this place and comes to love this place, but he also changes physically throughout the whole movie. He meets the Mexican father, Gustavo, at the beginning of the film in this tragic shooting, and he's one person. And by the time my character makes it, hundreds of miles into the heart of Mexico and shows up at this boy's funeral, I've literally lost my hat. I've lost my jacket. I barely have a t-shirt on, my eyes swollen, and I don't even say anything to him because there's nothing in the script. I remember, what would he say to him? How would he get his forgiveness? I'm there. I'm just showing up and looking him in the eyes. I think that's the best you can do. And I think in a way, I hope that would show respect to a father as well. Yeah. That I'm not going to try and pretend I can say I'm sorry or I can't fix this issue. All I can do is show up.
I feel like this is a film that might have been shot in the 1970s.
By design, yeah. We wanted a modern Western, contemporary Western. So it's, there's trucks as well as horses. But we definitely tried to strip away as much, and we're going back to the strip away term, but strip away technology. And this could have taken place in the 80s just as likely as right now. So it was definitely a choice to, at various points in the script, we chose to get rid of technology, get rid of phones. There's some phones and stuff in the movie. We weren't like pretending it was another time, but not allow that to define the movie, to keep the importance of the movie about the humans and their interactions with each other.
Your cinematography reminds me, as I was going to say, about Tell 'Em Willie Boy is here, and maybe Hombre. You have that kind of it's almost a washed out feeling, to the color, and yet very vibrant at the same time.
Thank you very much. We had a terrific cinematographer named Juan Pablo Ramirez, who's excellent at, he does a lot of his own handheld, and he stays very intimate with his with the characters that he's filming. It stays very close to them, so you're seeing it through their perspective. And in terms of the vibrancy of the movie, we really let the landscape do the talking for us. So we start in this no man's land, desert frontera area where it's sepia, dusty, and then as we travel deeper into Mexico, things start to get green as we go into the mountains, and vibrant when we go into the Pueblo Magicos, like magic cities of traditional Mexican towns. And that's just what they look like. So we weren't trying to inject color into it. It was just, it was there for us.
Jake, tell me what kind of education there is in working with Frank Grillo. I mean, the guy is, Hollywood incarnate.
Trial by fire.
He is the real deal, man. But he has such a way of pushing you to get your best while also supporting you in any way possible. Whether it's keeping things light in between takes, joking around. I mean, he's one of the most fun guys to be around on a set, I found. And at the same time, when it's time to work, it's time to work hard. And I need that. I grew up playing sports, and I found that Frank and I were kind of similar in that way. And, sports guys have a lot of fun in the locker room, and they joke around with the best of them. And then when you hit the field, it's on.
Yeah, he challenges you, challenge me, we challenge him, and all of that challenging, creates some friction, but it elevates what you're doing, and it makes everyone remember this is important, and we got to do better, even if you're doing good. Better.
He as well, I have to admit, I was just a fan of his, period. Growing up, I've been watching him for years. Kingdom is my favorite show of all time. So to be told that he was going to play my dad was, that was pretty dreamlike.
Prison Break and the other things he's done, going back to The Gray with Liam Neeson. I mean, the guy is just a powerhouse, and it seems like, as I said, working with him, I mean, you just can't help but learn.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. He's a guy who walks around with his binder with his script and just filled with notes all the time. And, for him to come and join our movie and him to be bringing that kind of work ethic to it and see how hard he's working.
And I thought it was, pretty courageous of him as well to be taking on a role that is so different from the roles that he can get so easily. I think he can play the New York City cop for the rest of his life if he wanted to. But instead he chose to grab a cowboy hat and come play a Texan.
And we're so glad he did, to do this.
Well.
And in a lot of these interviews, there, there's a lot of fluffy things about, your cast and finding them. And believe me, you have a beautiful cast. But I'd like to find out how you auditioned your crew, because these guys are amazing.
Mm-hmm.
We went to Mexico, which has, Mexico, see the Oscars, has an incredibly qualified artistic group of domestic filmmakers. They make great Mexican movies. And so we didn't bring any crew from the US to Mexico. We hired 100% of our people in Mexico, and to do otherwise would be like bringing sand to the beach. And the movie was better for it. I mean, and then they understood this was a message that was incredibly important to them at a personal level. So they were on board with what we were trying to do.
And I think we should give shout out to a lot of Mexican producers that either helped us along the movie or were actual producers on the movie. My co-writer and producer, David Barraza, introduced us to Jorge Jimenez, who played Gustavo, the Mexican father in the film.
Mm-hmm.
The producers at Panorama were constantly sending us HODs to check out. People were super, super generous with us.
I was surprised at Lopez's performance in this, because I always think of him as, as a comedian.
Of course.
But boy, he just tore my heart out.
Yeah, he's great. And he's so close to this role. We wanted this Texas Ranger who's got kind of a boot on both sides of the border, and doesn't quite fit in. He's judged one way when he's in Texas, and he's judged another way when he's in Mexico, and doesn't speak. He's Mexican of heritage, but he doesn't speak Spanish. We wanted to put people on notice on page one with him that, like, hey, don't make stereotypes because we're gonna break them.
Yeah,
he's perfect for that.
Yeah,
he's a great actor for that.
Yeah.
Of all the questions, I've been doing this for a long time, but of all the questions, the 8-year-old kid inside of me has to ask, what was the catering like on your movie?
It was pretty good.
It was pretty good. I mean, you gotta keep things simple when you're in the middle of the desert.
Yeah.
But I mean, I have to hand it to our catering company. I mean, if there's a scene in the desert, we were in the desert. So to be building pop-up tents every day.
I can say for sure this isn't about the food. Their food is great, but I do remember we were in the middle of the desert where, if you know the desert, it can get incredibly windy. And I remember right before lunch, just a huge wind storm coming in, and the tent for the whole catering tent just goes flying. I mean,
Wow.
If people had been standing in the right place, they'd been hurt. And fortunately, it didn't happen, but it just goes flying. And it was a huge debacle, and they just figured it out, solved the problem, get it working again, and
Connor, as we wind down this interview a little bit, do you have a scene that you're particularly proud of that you've directed? And I'm going to ask that to Jake as well about an acting moment in the film. But is there a scene that you love?
Yeah, I'll say I'll leave you with maybe what you're going to say, but there's a scene early on, and it's just between Jackson and a cow, and he's escaped into Mexico, and earlier in the movie is one of the things that sets the thing all off is that because of the immigrants coming through their land and cutting through the fences, that their struggling family ranch has been losing cattle, and a lot of the cattle have been getting off to Mexico, and that's just money lost for this ranch that can't afford to lose anything. And as Jackson's found himself in Mexico now, he runs across one of these cows, and it's got a bunch of barbed wire wrapped around its leg, and it's stuck there just like he is. And it's just this scene where Jackson gets the barbed wire off the cow and then says, okay, go home. The cow doesn't know which way to go, and you end up getting angry at the cow and telling it to run off. And that scene was very difficult to shoot because it's a freaking cow, and it's got horns, and trying not to get anyone mauled. But it's also like a really important scene for the character, and it's thematic to the whole point of the movie, which is like the cow doesn't know what side of the border he's on. Yeah. And that's the kind of where we were headed with the message of the movie. So I'm proud of that.
Incredible. And Jake?
And I loved all the scenes with the animals, but to talk about something different, I have to admit I loved, because I got to enjoy this scene on a writer level as well, the interrogation scene where Jorge Lopez is talking to my father, Frank Grillo, for the first time after the shooting, and I'm kind of literally stuck in the middle between them two, trying to stay quiet about what happened. And it was just so enjoyable for me. It was enjoyable for me as an actor because I got to act with these two just juggernauts of their craft. So that was great. They're going head to head. And then also as a writer, I know, they very nicely were like, this scene's bad. I love this scene. Frank had told me that was one of the scenes that made him want to do the movie. And so to be able to be in that scene, but also kind of like a little bit outside the scene, just like watching, was just, that was amazing.
That truly was a great scene. It's one of those moments where George's character sees the lie, basically, but he knows you're being protected by your dad. So again,
subtlety.
Yeah, all about what's not being said.
Yeah.
But guys, thank you so much for this film, and thank IFC for distributing it. It is just a passion with me to tell people about this film.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought up IFC Films because at least for me as a young actor writer, they took a chance on me. Big time. On a kid who hasn't been on many posters. They went for it, and I'm incredibly grateful.
Yeah, and we're going to be in like 200 theaters in a time when it's tough to catch a break in cinemas right now, and the whole world's going to have, or the whole country's going to have access to the movie. So.
Take care and do more films, and have a great afternoon.
Can I get a photo of this background?
You bet, sure.
Yeah, I love this, man.